France ran out of time before World War II, yet their aircraft remained surprisingly lethal. Here is every French machine that fought for the skies. We begin with fighters, the WW2 D520, arguably the finest pre-war interceptor France ever built, fast, agile. It stood toe-to-toe with the early Messerschmitt Bf 109, and the tragedy, production lagged. Had more been ready in May 1940, the outcome could have shifted. Next, the Morane-Saulnier MS-406, the most numerous workhorse during the Battle of France. Rugged and reliable, yes, but severely underpowered. German aces viewed it as easy prey, especially once the dogfights climbed to high altitudes. The Block MB-152, a sturdy monoplane built for heavy hitting. Sadly, critical design flaws and factory delays crippled its debut. By the time it hit the front, it was outclassed by the latest Axis threats. Moving on to the Potez 631, a sleek twin-engine hunter. An engine utilized primarily as a heavy fighter and reconnaissance platform, it dominated long-range patrols. This airframe birthed a dynasty of successful variants, serving across all French air wings. Next, the Caudron C-714 Cyclone, desperately fast, terrifyingly flimsy. French pilots called it the flying coffin. Yet, a small band of Polish volunteers flew these death traps with absolute fearlessness. During the 1940 campaign, up next, the Arsenal VG-33, sleek wooden construction promised exceptional performance. It boasted speed to rival the WW2 D520. Tragically, the assembly lines ground to a halt before the design could ever enter widespread service. The next one is the WW2 D510, an earlier generation fighter sporting fixed landing gear, which made it completely obsolete by 1940. Relegated to training and reserves, though a desperate few still sortied against the Germans before being shipped to North Africa. Up next, the Koolhoven FK-58, a Dutch design, panic-bought to fill the gaps in thinning squadrons. Quick to build and reasonably fast, but French pilots despised the lack of armor and defensive systems. Next is the Potez 230, a promising but ultimately unsuccessful prototype, intended to replace aging biplanes. Testing proved it simply could not meet the standards required for frontline operations in 1940. Let's move on to bombers. The Lioré et Olivier, Leo 451, perhaps France's most lethal modern bomber. Raw speed allowed it to outrun many interceptors. Despite excellent engineering, poor tactical choices led to horrific casualty rates during the Blitzkrieg. Next, the Amiot 351, a sleek, fast, twin-engine medium bomber born from a major modernization drive. However, factory issues stalled the rollout. Only a handful saw combat before the armistice in June 1940. Up next, the Breguet 693, a twin-engine light bomber built for the deck, specifically designed for low-level attack roles. It was agile, highly maneuverable, one of the most effective close support assets in the French arsenal. Then, the Potez 633, a light bomber variant of the versatile Potez 630 family. While many were exported, the domestic fleet was pressed into service, conducting medium-altitude raids. Now, the Amiot 143, a massive, ungainly relic from the mid-1930s. Critics said it looked like a flying apartment building. Hopelessly slow, heavily outdated. Crews were sitting ducks for German fighters during the Battle of France. Then, the Block MB-210, a large twin-engine night bomber with bizarre fixed landing gear. By the war's start, its speed was pathetic. It was relegated to training and transport duties. Up next, the NC-223, designed as a transatlantic mail carrier. This giant was converted into a 4-engine heavy bomber. One variant famously executed a symbolic raid on Berlin in the opening stages of the war. Next, the Potez 540, distinctive high wing, glazed nose, but already obsolete by 1939. It served as a troop transport and colonial patrol craft away from the mainland, continuing with reconnaissance and observation. And the Potez 63. Potez 11. This was the dedicated reconnaissance iteration of the Potez 630 series. It featured a heavily glazed nose for maximum visibility, one of the most critical aerial spotters for the French army in 1940. The Block MB-175, successor to the famed 170 line, a highly modern 3-seat reconnaissance bomber. Only a few prototypes were ready when the fighting stopped, but the performance potential was undeniable. Next, the Potez 637. An early reconnaissance model preceding the 6311, used extensively for medium-range mapping and observation, it formed the backbone of French scouting units. The Moreau 117. A dependable high-wing monoplane used for liaison and battlefield observation. Technically obsolete, but its reliability kept it flying well into the war. Then, the Potez 25, a legendary interwar biplane flown by dozens of nations. By 1939, it was pushed to advanced training schools and colonial policing in French Africa, proving its remarkable endurance. The Potez 39. This high-wing monoplane was a sturdy observation platform, though overshadowed by newer tech. It provided essential artillery spotting throughout the early war. The Brigade 27, a bizarre-looking two-seat reconnaissance biplane, unmistakable due to its exposed rear fuselage. Ruggedly built, but terrifyingly slow when facing modern German interceptors. Let's move on to naval aviation, seaplanes and flying boats. The Latécoère 298, considered one of the finest French naval aircraft of the era, a durable float plane that excelled at anti-submarine patrols and torpedo attacks. It served both Free French and Vichy navies. Next, the Loire 130. The Loire, the standard catapult-launched reconnaissance flying boat, robust, reliable, found on almost every major French cruiser and battleship. During the 1930s and 40s, the Brigade 521 Bizerte, a massive four-engine flying boat built for long-range Atlantic patrol. Primary roles included anti-submarine warfare and search and rescue. Finally, the Lioré et Olivier Leo H-470, a heavy four-engine flying boat designed for naval reconnaissance. However, development stalled, leaving only a single prototype to face the enemy, the Potez Cams 141, a massive four-engine flying boat engineered for extreme endurance. Its mission was deep naval reconnaissance. Yet, despite its formidable potential, only one solitary unit was operational when the conflict ignited. Moving on to the Latécoère 302. Originally built for the grueling transatlantic mail run, this heavy three-engine flying boat was rapidly converted for military patrol, leveraging its massive oceanic range. Next, the CAMS 55, an aging biplane design, slow and technically obsolete, but don't underestimate it. Its rugged hull made it a rock-solid asset for coastal defense and harbor surveillance. Up next, the Loire 70. The Loire, a gargantuan three-engine maritime scout. By 1939, it was a dinosaur, yet it continued to fly vital patrols across the Mediterranean and North Atlantic. Then, the Levasseur PL-7, an outdated single-seat carrier aircraft. It was yanked from the front lines almost immediately. It was simply too sluggish to survive against land-based fighters. Shifting gears to transport and training, we have the Caudron C-445 Goland, a twin-engine success story. Famous for bulletproof reliability and superb visibility, it was the backbone of personnel movement throughout the war and deep into the post-war era. Next, the Caudron C-630 Simone, a sleek, single-engine touring plane. It earned its legendary status when the renowned and the aviator Antoine de Saint-Exupéry piloted it on his record-breaking long-distance runs. Then, the Block MB-220, a pre-war civilian airliner icon. When hostilities erupted, it was instantly drafted. It became a critical military transport. Next is the Potez 650, a triple-engine heavy lifter. A triple engine, purpose-built for military logistics, it was the workhorse responsible for hauling essential supplies and troops between key bases. The Potez 58, a small, dependable three-seat monoplane. It handled the unglamorous but vital tasks of communication and observation across French sectors. Moving on to the Morane-Saulnier MS-230. This iconic parasol wing monoplane served as the primary classroom for the French Air Force for over 10 years. This was the machine where a generation of pilots mastered the art of flight. Next, the Caudron C-400 Phaline, a high-wing cabin monoplane, used extensively for liaison and utility. The military prized it for one reason: sheer, rugged simplicity. Then the Potez 29, an old-school biplane transport. While visibly outdated, its impressive payload capacity kept it in service as a logistical stalwart. It saw heavy action in the North African colonies. Finally, the Farman F-224, a colossal four-engine giant born for civil aviation. It was quickly militarized, adapted to haul massive waves of troops and heavy equipment to the front lines.